Shadows, the horror movie heroes, by Clouds. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 9. Fashion. Kyoka had never been one to chase hero fights. She'd watch them if she saw one on her way home from school, but she'd had far too many nightmares about hearing someone call out for help from under the rubble, and the hero fighting couldn't hear them. She always woke up feeling helpless, which was part of the reason she wanted to be a hero in the first place. She hated the idea of hearing someone call out for help and not being able to do anything about it. So, no, she didn't make a habit of watching hero fights, but she also didn't make a habit of leaping in head first before she looked. So she'd been trying to watch as many of All Might's fights as she could ever since he had offered her One for All. She knew that she could always catch the recordings on the news later, but it was just different in person. She couldn't really listen to a recording, not in the same way. The poor quality mics that the news stations used would never have been able to pick up the subtle hum of energy surrounding All Might as he resolved a hostage situation. Kyoka closed her eyes and focused on the steady buzz of energy, straining her ears to sort it out from the sounds of the crowd and the fight. One for All sounded almost electric, but the part that had surprised her the most wasn't that it had sound. It was the fact that it was almost harmonic. It made sense since each holder in the past had contributed their energy to the quirk, but the subtle way that they interweaved was weirdly haunting. She just wished she could actually listen. Whenever All Might was fighting, it was too loud to really enjoy the depth of the sound. She could still hear One for All when All Might was in his smaller form, now that she knew what to look for, but it was quieter and almost non-existent, so she couldn't really hear it. She was curious about how it would sound when she actually got the quirk. Hopefully, she'd at least have a bit more time to listen then. The crowd surged and someone was pushing into her from behind. Whoever it was ended up dropping a notebook in front of her, and she extended her earphone jacks to catch it before it hit the ground. She grabbed the notebook and looked around. Who? Mine, sorry. A boy around her age brushed his green hair out of his face and grimaced. Sorry, I was trying to get closer and... He trailed off as his eyes caught on something in the fight, and before she could say anything else, he had snatched his notebook from her hands and was already shouldering his way through to the front. Kyoka looked through the crowd after him, her eyes widening when she realized that All Might was starting to steam and the hum of One for All was taking on a strained quality. He needed to get out of there. Thankfully, another hero leapt into action, and Kyoka breathed a sigh of relief as All Might was able to slip away. She frowned as she thought of the boy. Had he realized the fight was almost over? She sighed and shrugged it off. It was weird, but probably not that important in the grand scheme of things. The crowd was starting to clear, and Kyoka ducked inside the mall to get away from all the people and the noise. She wasn't in any rush, and All Might obviously wouldn't be up for any training right now, so maybe she could just window shop and kill time while she waited for the crowds from the fight to go away. Kyoka started walking toward one of her favorite stores that sold the kind of alternative style clothing that she liked to wear. She could use a new pair of pants anyway. Hitoshi, Izuku said hopelessly, I think we're lost. Hitoshi raised his eyebrow. Physically or metaphorically? Because I think both apply. Izuku swallowed. I know darkwear sounded like a good idea when we saw it on the map, but I have no idea where to even start. Pants, a voice said behind them. Or maybe skirts, if that's more your style. Shinso whirled around to see a girl their age with what looked like headphone jacks hanging from her ears, looking at them in amusement. No, we're trying to prioritize freedom of movement, so pants will be fine. Izuku's eyes widened. You're that girl I saw earlier. You were watching All Might's fight. And you're the one that ran into me. She shrugged, and her earphones mimicked the movement. Izuku immediately started mumbling, those aren't just hanging from her ears, they are her ears, which means it's part of her quirk. That's so cool. It must come with advanced hearing. And Hitoshi dug an elbow into his ribs before he could start muttering full force, Izuku, we're not trying to scare this one off. Izuku blushed. Sorry. The girl shrugged again. Whatever. You were right about the enhanced hearing, so I'm used to tuning things out. I'm sorry. Izuku mumbled, blushing deeper. That must get really annoying. Again, I'm used to it. The girl said, my name is Jiro, by the way. I'm Shinso, Hitoshi said, and this chatterbox is Midoriya. Jiro nodded. So what led to this complete overhaul in style? Did your girlfriends break up with you or something? Hitoshi didn't know why he ended up blushing at that, but hopefully it wasn't too noticeable. No, it's kind of hard to explain. Hey, I'm not here to judge. Jiro rolled her eyes. I'm also not here to help. But you two were wandering around like little lost puppies, and it was kind of obvious that you were desperate. Thanks, Hitoshi said dryly. Jiro smiled for the first time since they'd met her. No problem. I'm going to be a hero, so helping those who can't help themselves is kind of in the job description. Hitoshi gave her a tired glare as Izuku latched onto what she'd just said. You're going to be a hero? Us too! That's really kind of why we're here. We're trying to get some combat experience, so we're doing this thing where we're pretending to be like fake villains, kind of, to help hero students in training? Jiro shook her head. You do realize how fake that sounds, right? If I wasn't participating in the exact same exercise, I'd be tempted to think you two were looking for vigilante gear. Wait, you're doing the same exercise? Hitoshi gave her a skeptical look. At UA? No, at Shiketsu. Jiro scoffed. Of course at UA. No other school would be crazy enough to put on an exercise like that. True. Hitoshi hummed. So, are you looking for an outfit for the exercise too? No, I was just planning on throwing together some junk from my closets. Jiro shrugged. I dress like this every day. So what you're saying is that you're the perfect person to help us. Izuku grinned. You're already familiar with the exercise, and you said it yourself. This is your aesthetic. So we start with pants, right? We want something with a lot of pockets if we can. I think I saw a couple pairs over there. Jiro started leading them to another section of the store. You'll want to stick with blacks and grays, obviously, since I'm guessing you're wanting to blend in with the cityscape. Exactly, Hitoshi said, but we also want to be memorable if we are seen. So maybe a pop of color, Jiro said thoughtfully, and you'll want to look stronger than you are, which means a looser cut around your arms and legs to hide those noodles you two have going on. Hey, Hitoshi cried indignantly, we've been working out. Jiro shot him an amused look. Obviously not enough. I mean, she is kind of right, Izuku grimaced. We are mostly planning to rely on strategy and intelligence rather than brute strength. Well, at least you've got a brain. Jiro shrugged. That's more than some heroes I can mention. These pants look like they'll be all right. Things were a lot less confusing with Jiro helping them, and Hitoshi found himself enjoying her snarky commentary as she helped them sort through the different options. A lot of items, like armored shirts and sturdy boots, they realized they were going to have to buy somewhere else, like an army surplus store, but they at least got a good start on their villain look. The worst part, though, was buying the jackets. This is not a jacket, Hitoshi deadpanned, holding up the offensive article of clothing. This is a crop top. Yeah, but it's what's in style. Jiro snickered. What? You don't want to show the world your non-existent abs? Ha ha, very funny. Hitoshi rolled his eyes. It just doesn't seem very practical. We'll be wearing armored shirts underneath, Izuku argued, and the shorter cut will allow for more freedom of movement. Plus, the longer version is 3 times more expensive, so we're getting crop top jackets. Hitoshi sighed. Joy. I'm getting the one with the purple trim. Izuku, you get the one with green. It's nap time. You're ridiculous. Jiro said, but good luck with the exercise. Not sure if we're competing against each other or just with the hero students, but either way, good luck. Maybe we'll get pitted against the same group of students. Hitoshi found himself smiling. Yeah, that'd be fun. You can recognize us by our crop tops. Oh, you'll look great. Jiro smiled. I better get going. See you later. Hitoshi waved to her as Izuku gathered everything to take up to the register. Bye. Nezu grinned as his employees started scanning through the lists of names they needed to clear and approve files for before the exercise began. It was mostly a formality, since all of these applicants had already had to pass a basic background check to get this far, and the vast majority had either participated in the exercise in previous years or had come recommended by a pro, with a few notable exceptions. Nezu was curious what his staff would think of their volunteers this year. They had a good mix of skill levels, not to mention the fact that All Might's new successor would be participating. So no matter what, it was bound to be an interesting exercise. Most of these are repeats, so they already know what's up, Snipes said after a long pause. Major thing is just to make sure they don't get pitted against the same students. We'll also have to skim over their files to make sure they're not trying to slip anything through, Aizawa pointed out. But yes, they already know the rules, so their files won't need as much work. There's some fresh blood here, too, Midnight hummed. We've got a few younger applicants, actually. Ooh, there's even a few middle schoolers. Cute little babies. A few? All Might blinked in surprise. I thought there was only one. There's actually 4. Nezu gave an excited little chirp. How about we start with them, since you find them so interesting? That sounds wonderful, Recovery Girl said. Who's first? This Kaminari kid. Cementos pointed to the name. That's Electra's kid, right? Yes, Nezu said. And if you'll look, you'll see that she is participating as well. I think I remember hearing that she takes each of her kids on a special trip every year just to help with work-life balance. What with her being a pro hero who takes a lot of overseas missions, 13 said. It's sweet. If this is a family bonding activity, then the kid must be trying to be a hero, Aizawa said. He's the right age to be applying to UA. That he is, Nezu nodded. He was always so proud of his teachers when they caught on to something small like that, even if it was painfully obvious once one had all the necessary information. It was entertaining watching them grow, and he and his mother seemed to be planning on working in a team, so I'll let you take a look at both files. He started passing around copies of the files the Kaminaris had sent in. They were very convincing files, obviously, since Electra had seen more police files than the average person, and had all the information on their quirks and fighting style that one would see in the files that was usually given to heroes at the start of a mission, exactly as they wanted it. Aizawa gave the files a once-over for less than a minute before shutting them and pushing them away. Electra knows what she's doing. Let's stop wasting time and move on to the next one. That'd be Kyoka Chiro, isn't that right? Recovery Girl piped up. Gran Torino suggested she do the exercise. I haven't heard from that old geezer in forever. Snipe laughed. How's he doing? Maybe I'd know if he called more often. Recovery Girl griped. That old man likes to pretend he has dementia, but from how often he forgets that other people exist, you'd think he actually did. Well, let's hope he didn't forget to help her with her file, Aizawa said, reaching out for Jiro's file. She's got a pretty rockin' mugshot, President Mike said, and a quirk that enhances her hearing will make for an interesting challenge for our kiddos, that's for sure. Nezu watched All Might squirm in his seat as his new co-workers essentially passed judgment on his successor without him being able to acknowledge her as such. If he insisted on keeping One for All a secret, then he would have to get used to situations like this, and ones that were even more odd and uncomfortable once she started showing signs of her new quirk. Nedzu didn't know why he hadn't thought of having All Might's successor participate in this exercise earlier. It would be a nice test run to see how the quirk affected her, and by the time school started, he'd be prepared with a nice cup of tea and a list of suggestions for improvement. It was perfect. Well, we'll have to have her make a few minor changes, 13 said, but it mostly looks good. You said we have 2 other kiddos their age, right? Ah, yes, Izuku Midoriya and Hitoshi Shinso. Nedzu grinned and pulled out the file, passing copies around the table. The file was suspiciously thin, something that did not go unnoticed by his staff. Mike accepted the file with a confused look. Is this it? Which of the 2 is this one for? Both, Nedzu said. They always work as a team, so one file is sufficient. I would not describe this as sufficient, Aizawa said dryly. There isn't even a mugshot, Midnight said. How are they supposed to be villains without mugshots? There is a photo, Snipe pointed out hesitantly. It looks like security footage, but still. There's none of their actual faces, though, Cementos said. They're wearing masks in that one. That is because they have never been arrested, Nedzu said, or so they claim. What little they did put in the file says that they specialize in stealth and that one of the 2 has experience with hacking, so they are rarely, if ever, caught on camera and never out of costume. It's a bold claim, Ectoplasm said. It might put our students at a disadvantage. But they're going to get cases with hardly any info once they graduate. Aizawa groaned. We're going to let them keep their mystery file, aren't we? As you would say, it's only logical, Nedzu chirped happily. Although if the rest of you do not agree, we can insist they add more information to it. They had to identify themselves and their quirks to submit, right? Mike asked. What powers do they have? Hitoshi Shinso has a brainwashing quirk, Nedzu said, which is part of the evidence the 2 cited for how they had never been arrested. Izuku Midoriya is quirkless. The room went quiet. After a long moment, Midnight spoke up. I say let it stand. Yes, 13 nodded. I hate to say it, but those kids are going to need every advantage we can give them. Plus, it's not as if they'll be able to keep themselves hidden for long, Ectoplasm said. Our students are smart. They'll figure out Shinso's quirk the first time he uses it. Yeah, Snipe agreed. It's just like Aizawa said. It'll be good for them to practice filling out sparse villain files, but their advantage won't last more than a day or 2, assuming they stay in the exercise that long. Which isn't very likely, Aizawa sighed. They might surprise us, but I'm not counting on it. Whatever. The point is to have a wide variety of skill levels. The students need some easy takedowns if they're going to be fighting the likes of Elektra as well. So we'll put them fighting the same group, Cementos said. May as well throw in the other middle schooler too. Maybe they'll be able to make some friends. We should pit them against the second years, just for a good balance. Midnight added. The third years would crush those kids in a heartbeat, and the first years don't do the exercise. Then it's decided, Nedzu clapped his paws together. Those 4 will all face off against our second-year students in the exercise. Yes, this year was going to be interesting indeed. End of chapter.